Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress with number 118 in the series Viewers Games, and also the next move in the game between myself and the Chess to Impress viewers. If you would like your game to be analyzed on the Chess to Impress YouTube channel, you can send it to me by email to classroomchess64@gmail.com. In this video, we're going to look at a game from Matt from Maryland in the United States of America. And when I wrote to Matt saying it was his turn, he said, "Hi Rick, oh yeah, let's do it. By the way, I'm a family doctor in Maryland and watch your channel regularly. I especially like the viewers' games because they're more relatable. Perhaps you could talk about the challenge of playing a game without making blunders. One thing I know is to avoid leaving any pieces undefended. Another is to not incur any positional weaknesses. The one frequently gets me. For example, I move pawns in front of my king. Finally, Carlson says if you can't see a definite advantage in an attack, don't initiate it. But if I play without being aggressive, my opponent attacks and I play the whole game on the defensive. Thanks for broadcasting such an interesting YouTube channel." Yes, Matt, I think we can relate to all those things you said there. Chess is a difficult game. And knowing when to attack and when to defend, and knowing when to play up a pawn in front of your king and when not to do that is very difficult. And it's one of the things that strong players are better at. Let's look at Matt's game. He played on chess.com. It was a blitz game, 3 minutes and a 2-second increment per move. Matt had a rating of 1553 and his opponent sitting in Miami had a rating of 1618. So quite similar ratings. Matt opened with the e-pawn, e5, the classical reply, knight f3, knight c6, and Matt plays the Ruy Lopez, the Spanish opening. Here a6 is the most popular move by a long shot. Knight f6 is also popular, and the third option was played by black, which is d6. Now d4 is the main move, but Matt decided to take on c6. B takes, and now he played d4. That pawn was taken, and you can take with the knight, but Matt decided to take with the queen, which is also fine. Bishop b7, c4 and c5, a logical move to give that bishop more scope. And this is not the last thing that we'll say about that bishop on b7 in this game. Matt's queen is attacked, so he retreats it to d3. Knight f6, knight c3 developing, bishop to e7, and Matt puts his bishop on f4. Both players castled, and now a strange move from black. He played c6 here, burying the bishop on b7. Maybe black wanted to get the move d5 in, and that's why he played c6 to support that move. But as we'll see, that plan will not work out very well for black. Matt played a very good move, rook a to d1, preventing d5, preventing this move, and attacking the weakness on d6. That is a weak pawn, now that that c pawn is no longer on c7. Black's plan of probably playing d5 does not work here. It just costs a pawn after c takes, e takes. Just an extra pawn for white for nothing. What to do about that weak d6 pawn? Well, black saw nothing better than defend it passively with knight e8. The knight is now also defending the d6 pawn. It's protected well enough. Still, e5 is the best move in this position according to the engine. And then the engine gives this variation. D takes e5, knight takes e5. The queens get swapped, and this is a better position for white. A pleasant advantage. These two pawns are weak. The bishop is a silly piece on b7, and all white's pieces are harmoniously placed. So that after knight e8 and then e5. But Matt played rook f to e1, also a sensible move. And now black makes a mistake. A move like bishop a6 is given by the engine, trying to improve that piece, but black plays queen d7, and now the queen is unprotected there. And that makes the move e5 possible. Matt did not play it yet, but this is a very strong move. This pawn is now pinned, and white is attacking that pawn 4 times. like this. It's only defended 3 times. So if you defend it again with rook d8, then white gets a big advantage with e takes d6. And if you take back, there is knight g5. Very nice move. With a threat of checkmate on h7. So you have to play g6 and then knight g to e4. Again, putting pressure on that d6 square on that bishop. And white will win material here. If you take on f4, if you take that bishop, then white will take on d7 and will win material. So that is the problem for black after e5. And if you try to get out of trouble with the d5 push, which black must have been planning anyway, that doesn't work either. White just wins a pawn by taking everything on d5. Like this. Rook takes d5 and white is a very healthy pawn up. So that is the threat after queen d7 and then e5. Matt played it differently. He played knight g5 instead. And now you really have to kick that knight back with h6. Knight back and then rook d8 and black is still standing. But black decided to play rook d8 straight away. And why is that different? Well, the difference is that now e5, which was found by Matt, comes with a checkmate threat on h7. We saw that in the previous variation. And that makes a big difference. Black decided to take the knight off the board to deal with the checkmate threat. Bishop takes g5, hitting the rook on d8, and f6. It doesn't solve black's problems, because after e takes f6, g takes f6, the pawn formation on the king side is broken up. And the black king is suddenly not feeling very secure on g8. Matt played bishop h6, attacking the rook on f8, rook f7, and knight e4. Again, putting pressure on that d6 pawn. Very weak pawn. d5 was played now, but knight takes c5 was Matt's answer, winning a pawn, and the black position is ruined. Look at black's pieces, compare them to white's, and you can see who is better here. It's not just that white is a pawn up, his pieces are much more active and better coordinated than black's. Queen g4 from black. The rook is still protecting that bishop. Knight e6, attacking the rook on d8, rook dd7, and rook e3, a rook lift, with a threat of rook g3, which would win the queen. Black decided to take on c4, winning the pawn back. Rook g3 check anyway, king stepped aside, and now Matt decided to swap the queens and ruin black's pawns. Doubled pawns on the c-file. Rook takes d7, rook takes. Black has somewhat survived in the last few moves, but he's still worse. But for the first time in the game, he has a threat. Do you see the threat from black? Yes, he's threatening to win the game on the spot with rook d1, which would be checkmate. Matt was not going to fall for that. He played h3. Rook e7, kicking the knight. Knight back to the nice square on c5. And here bishop c8 makes sense. That bishop has to be improved. It was really doing nothing apart from being a big pawn on b7. On c8 at least it has some scope. But black decided to play bishop a8. And the bishop is not much better there than on b7. In fact, it's worse. It's really not doing anything apart from guarding the c6 pawn. King h2. And here rook e5 makes sense, kicking that strong knight on c5. But black made a blunder. In bad positions, blunders come quite easily. He played knight d6. Looks like a logical move, improving that piece. But there is a tactical problem with it. And I'm asking you if you can see it. You may want to put the video on pause. How does white win a piece here? Well, with a very nice move, bishop h6 to f8. An unusual tactic. Hitting the rook, and through the rook it's hitting the knight. And this rook cannot go to e6 to protect the knight. It cannot go to d7 to protect the knight, because white's knight is taking those two squares away. And if the rook goes to e5 to counterattack white's knight, then bishop takes d6, wins a piece and protects the knight at the same time. It all works out for white. Very nice. move bishop f8. Matt did not find it. After knight d6, that blunder from black, he played rook f3. Hitting the pawn on f6. f5 was played, protected by the knight on d6. But again, bishop f8 wins a piece here. Matt played bishop f4 instead, attacking the knight that way. Knight e4. The knight was swapped. Rook takes and bishop e3. A lot of material has gone off the board again, but white is still winning because of that horrible bishop on a8 and also because of the weakness of black's pawns. I'm not sure if you heard about the rule of the groups, the pawn groups. White only has 2 groups of pawns on the king side and on the queen side, while black has 4 groups of pawns. They're all isolated, and the general rule of thumb is that the player with less pawn groups has the better position, and this is a very good illustration of that rule. All black's pawns are weak. Black played c5 to finally bring that bishop into play, but there goes the first pawn, attacking the c5 pawn, attacking a second pawn which cannot be saved. Black played rook e8, and there goes the second pawn. That's 2 pawns, and the third pawn is also going to fall. What can black do? Well, not much. Even a move like rook b8, counter-attacking a white pawn, does not work because of rook takes c4. And if you take on b2, then white can choose either win the rook with this bishop double attack, or rook c8 check, winning that poor bishop in the corner. Totally winning for white. Black, however, threw himself on his own sword. Instead of continuing the suffering, he played rook g8 and blundered a mate in 2. If you want to look for the mate in 2, put the video on pause again. It's not very difficult. Bishop d4 check was the last move of the game. Here black resigned. The only legal move is rook g7, and then this is checkmate. The rook cannot interpose because it is pinned by the bishop on d4. Very nice game from Matt, very clean game, as he said in his introduction. Perhaps you could talk about the challenge of playing a game without making blunders. One thing I know is to avoid leaving any pieces undefended. Another is to not incur any positional weaknesses. And this was a very good example where white indeed did not leave his pieces undefended, did not incur any positional weaknesses, and black did not follow those golden rules and suffered a heavy defeat. Well played, Matt, and thank you very much for sharing this game. You played very, very well. And what about our game, Rick against the Chess to Impress viewers? We have arrived at the 24th move. We make a move each Sunday after the viewers' game, and my move last Sunday was knight c3 to b5, and I asked you in the 3 videos from last week to make your reply to make the move for black in this position. Let's see what you came up with. 25 of you submitted a move, and I want to thank you for that very much. Queen e5 to e7. Dropping the queen back was the most popular move with 8 votes. a6 takes b5, taking the knight, giving up the rook in the corner. An exchange sacrifice was voted for 6 times. It was promoted by funny animator Jim TV, and a few people followed his suggestion, but the move just fell short. Rook e8 to d8 was voted for 3 times as well. Rook e8 to e7. g5 was voted for once, and queen h5 also once. 3 viewers wanted to resign, but that would be a very unsatisfactory outcome of this game. Material is equal, and it's a board full of pieces. Anything can happen. Let's play on. And let's put your move on the board. Queen e5 to e7. Making sure I cannot win an exchange with knight c7. The queen is now protecting that square. It also deals with bishop e3 to f4 being a tempo on the queen. The queen is no longer on e5, but I decided to play that move anyway, putting pressure on the d6 pawn. Both my knight and my bishop are now attacking that pawn, and it's only protected by the queen. So now it is your move again, your 25th move for black. What would you play in this position? You can take part in this game by putting your move in the comment section underneath this video. By doing so, you will be in the raffle. At the end of the game, I will raffle a chess book amongst the viewers who have taken part in this game. I'm looking forward to seeing your 25th move in the comment section. And I hope you enjoyed this video on Matt's game. Very nice game it was. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, please subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel, and please leave a comment. I will read them all and I will reply to them all. If you like this video, if you like the series of viewers games, the link to the playlist is in the description box underneath this video. Then please share it on social media by clicking the share button on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram, on Twitter and on Facebook. This is Rick for Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.